Hello friends, I am Dr. Rahul Grover. Today I am going to discuss resumption of elective orthopedic surgeries, what challenges do we have and what solutions what we are going to have in the upcoming times of post-COVID era. Uh, we have a lot of guidelines which were laid down by various associations or various societies of orthopedic surgeons. The first one being given by, there were five guidelines given by American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeon, that is AUS, and there were few guidelines later on given by American Society of Anesthesiologists, although they were quite detailed. But the guidelines or recommendations that were given by JCOT, there was a paper published in JCOT this last week, and those guidelines were quite detailed as per Indian scenario, and I found them really good as far as Indian scenario is concerned. So let us discuss what Americans has to say first, and then we'll go on to what is associated with Indian perspective and how do we and how are we going to manage this pandemic very well as far as orthopedic surgeries are concerned. So let's go ahead with AUS guidelines. AUS updates guidelines amid COVID-19 pandemic, including resuming elective surgery. So there are five guiding principles associated with this. The first one being, they say that patient safety is the first priority, considering the provision of healthcare services, items, and procedures amid COVID-19 pandemic. And the second guideline was the safety of healthcare personnel and the staff associated is of next highest priority after accounting for the patient safety. And you have to consider, when you are considering the provision of healthcare services, items, and procedures, so this you have to prioritize safety of the patient first and safety of self as second. The third guideline was you have to adhere to CDC and relevant federal, state, and local public health guidelines and recommendations. The safety of patient and staff members is paramount. The fourth guideline was the decision should be locally based as factors vary by locale. This includes incidence, prevalence, patient and staff risk factors, community needs, resource availability, that which includes ICU beds, hospital beds, ventilators, personal protective equipments, etc. And at the same time, it is imperative to accurately determine if the disease burden is uh, whether it is increasing, whether your graph is flattening or it is decreasing, as well as reproductive number greater than equal to or less than 1. So you have to be aware of that, and accordingly you have to go ahead with your services as an orthopedic surgeon. And the fifth guideline that they gave, that you have to follow legal restrictions. Many states locales have mandated shutdowns and they have stay at home orders, unlike India where we had lockdown all over the country. They do not have lockdown all over the country. So their guidelines are good, but they are not as per the Indian scenario. And these guidelines which were given by AUS, they were not as detailed as are required by any person or any orthopedic surgeon practicing anywhere in the world. Later on, some guidelines, although they were quite detailed, were given by American Society of Anesthesiologists, but I found them not that relevant as compared to those recommendation or guidelines given by JCOT journal, which was published on 4th of May this month. So I will go directly on to that journal published by very eminent Indian orthopedic surgeons. So this is post COVID-19 planning strategies to resume orthopedic surgery, challenges and considerations. So first of all, they have very nicely discussed what problems are we going to face in the upcoming times. So they anticipated a lot of problems that we are going to face in the upcoming times of post COVID times. So the first thing that every orthopedic surgeon or maybe another surgeons are anticipating is the overwhelming of the patients that are coming back to the OPDs or your clinics after this lockdown is over. So there will be a surge in orthopedic patients, which we are expecting due to restrictions imposed by pandemic, including situations of trauma conditions which have been managed conservatively along traditional established orthopedic principles and require second stage corrective procedure. And the second problem that they are anticipating is that there will be or there can be shortage of orthopedic surgeons rendering care to the people of India with a disproportionate surgeon to patient ratio along with lack of post operative intensive care bed facilities. I think which is more important, that there will be a lack of post-operative ICU beds in upcoming times. The third is that when these patients are going to come back to our clinics, there will be some new patients, there will be those patients who have developed disease over this last 1.5 months of lockdown, and there will be the patients which have already been in the wait list of our operation theater. So now you have to prioritize who's gonna get to the operation theater first. You have to look out for risk as well as benefit ratio for that particular patient. uh, they have very nicely gave what challenges that we are going to face. So first of all, they have very nicely said that yes, there are going to be staff shortages because a lot of staff has been displaced. Orthopedic staff has been displaced to the COVID wards, and they will probably be in the quarantine by the time this lockdown is over. So this, yes, we are probably anticipating, or we are probably having this challenge of staff shortages in upcoming times. There can be a deficient supply chain of the surgical implants because these implants or consumable or surgical materials, these majority of them are imported from outside India. So there's gonna be some problem that we are going to face, or there might be an increase in these implant cost. I think this needs to be regulated by Government of India, which they have also mentioned in their paper. The third challenge that we are going to face is that there is increased expenses of the patient to the patient and or insurance companies following elaborate protocols during surgery, because after this our lives and almost everybody's life is going to change, and our daily practices in usual life as well as the life that we have inside operation theater. That is, for the patient we have to manage pre-operatively, intraoperatively, immediate post-operatively, and late post-operatively. So for all this matter of COVID-19, all the protocols will change, and they all will need very systematic and detailed workup of the patient. The next challenge that we are going to face is probably the increased expenses to the patients and insurance companies following surgery. Adequate provision of ICU beds, whether it will be there or not. Then again, you have to prioritize or triage non-emergency surgery patients according to the risk-benefit ratio of the patient and the community. So these are the challenges that me and you and every orthopedic surgeon is going to face in upcoming times, and we have to manage it well. Next thing is the consideration that I think they have give a very good and detailed recommendations in their paper what everybody should follow. And obviously we will all be following the guidelines laid down by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and the ICMR. Along with that, they have given very detailed and very logical guidelines, and they are also following the norms with what internationally ASA and AUS have given. So first of all is the planning. We actually need a very detailed planning for any particular patient in any surgical patient, whether they have to go conservative or they have to go surgery. If they have to go surgery, what all pre-operative things that we need to take care of now from now on, as they are also recommending in their paper that pre-operative workup is of utmost importance. So what will be the role of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare? Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, it has and will obviously have an overarching role in regulation of resumption of elective surgeries and semi-elective surgeries in post-COVID-19 phase in India. They will also have a continually evolve standard operating procedure as we go ahead with these post-COVID times, as and when with the needs and what problems do we face that we are going to see in the upcoming times. So they will evolve their guidelines accordingly, according to what problems that we are going to face. Then there is a role of Indian Orthopedic Association as well. So they will also give their updated guidance on recommendations for resuming safe surgical as well as safe elective and delayed trauma surgeries. Then there will be considerations of COVID-19 testing. As far as this testing is concerned, they also are recommending, and there have been evidences that reverse transcriptase PCR method of testing is way much better than the rapid testing because of the variabilities in the results of rapid testing. And they are also recommending more testing and more sample collection facilities need to be set up urgently, and it should be set up in-house in order to facilitate detection of the coronavirus before it is decided to start non-essential services. So this is what they recommend in their paper, and I actually think that it is quite logical. The next thing is that in case of trauma and orthopedic consideration, there should be a constant decrease, and this is also the same thing that American Society of Anesthesiologists also says, that when you see a constant decrease in rate of new coronavirus 19, new COVID-19 cases for at least 14 days or 14 to 21 days nationally or regionally in the area, then only you should think of starting elective or semi-elective procedures, because the incubation period of this virus is 5 to 14 days. That's why they are saying that it should be at least 14 days in order to start elective or semi-elective procedure. That it is not just that flattening of the curve, it should be decreasing of the cases for the last 14 days, then only you will be starting your elective or semi-elective cases. Any resumption of elective surgeries or reopening of hospitals should be approved by appropriate state health authorities dealing with the National COVID Management Action Plan. Then there is next consideration, which is delay in primary fixation of fractures. Although it is, I think it is adding a lot of comorbidity to the patients, but when you weigh risk over benefit ratio for those unfortunate patients who have acquired these injuries in peri-pandemic times, I think going for conservative or delayed primary fixation is a very good option, and this is what the paper also suggests, that a late more than 21 days of delayed primary operative fixation of displaced fracture is a viable option for cases that presented late with predictable favorable results as described in many studies. A delay to primary fixation of up to 3 months following injury may be acceptable, particularly if outcomes in delayed surgeries are weighed against the risk of surgeries done during these acute times and is associated with complications. So yes, you have to weigh risk benefit ratio in the favor or in the best interest of the patient. Then only you have to go ahead with the surgery. Then assessment of patients and consent. You have to go for robust preoperative assessment of the elective surgical fitness, and you have to reduce the risk of post-operative complication with medical evaluation supported by preoperative assessment. You have to detect asymptomatic carriage of novel coronavirus as well, and you have to reduce demand for post-operative intensive care facilities by doing faster surgeries, by doing very detailed preoperative examination of the patient, so that he or she should not go into intensive care observation. Now, how will you prioritize your patient? So they have given very good guidelines here, that surgeries which, if not done in a month or so, will cause impairment of limb function or make future surgery dangerous. So you have to prioritize patient in this order. So first is this, second is surgeries to improve lifestyle of the patient for more than, and for more than 1 year old condition can be withheld or deferred as of now unless the patient function is seriously impaired, that he or she is bedridden and cannot walk in house also. So then only you will say, okay, I will go for surgery. Otherwise I will, or you will be saying to the patient, let's wait till this pandemic gets over completely. Then the third priority will be a different approach needs to be made for those immunocompromised patients, especially those diabetic mellitus patients, chronic organic dysfunction patient, or patients who are on chemo or radiotherapy. So it may be considered to make it mandatory for the patient to isolate himself or herself at home, or at least 2 weeks prior to a major elective orthopedic surgery like a joint replacement. So these guidelines on how to prioritize, or how to differentiate, or how to give preference to your patients, or how to teach them as well, that yes, they have to be a little bit more patient and they have to wait for a while for getting themselves operated. So you also know these guidelines have given a very good idea for every one of us. Then other considerations being orthopedics resources and facilities. Obviously, in the upcoming times, we may face shortage, but if we are going to start elective or semi-elective surgery, we have to make sure that there is at least 30 days supply of PPEs present in your setup, and or there is a continuous running supply chain at your setup. Then there will be screening protocols. You have to screen uh, patients according to what your local facilities give you the guidelines for. If our ministry or ICMR is giving the guidelines that yes, each and every one of the patient who is going for the surgery to be tested, then yes, it needs to be tested. Although they have given recommendation in this paper that it should be that patient should be tested before going into surgery, because it not only risks the operating surgeon, it risks everyone. And because operating theater is a closed chamber with uh, obviously with laminar airflow, but still also there are a lot of staff inside operation theater, and there will always be a risk to others getting infected. So screening protocols is something that we need to take proper consideration. Then orthopedic theater and staff planning. This is very good. These guidelines are given in their paper very nicely, and I found it very detailed and very nice in this paper. So these are they say that all those procedures, all those aerosol generating procedures, that is AGP, including anesthetic induction and use of orthopedic power tools, would necessitate full PPE adornment. And since you are doing an AGP or aerosol generating procedure, you have to have a separate operative theater which is dedicated to these novel coronavirus patients. And when you have this separate operating theater for them, so there should be a separate entry dressing room, then there is ante room, then there is operating room, then there is exit room, and then there is exit dressing room. So this is how it should be designed. And there is separate place for obviously for donning and doffing of your PPE. Then it suggests that COVID-19 OT complex, uh, that this complex must have very high efficiency particulate air filter, that is HEPA air filter, or laminar airflow inside the operating room in order to reduce viral contamination. The next day suggests that minimum required number of surgeons or staff should go inside operating theater in order to in order to minimize the exposure. And the orthopedic tools and procedures which generate aerosols like drills, reamers, saw, electrocautery, they must be minimally or not used at all. And the next thing that they suggest is that there is a need to have hard covers of the power tools like those currently used for arthroscopy equipments. And you should also have an idea about how to dispose of the irrigating fluid into an arthroscopic patient without contaminating yourself as well as floor of operation theater. The next guideline that they suggest is that there is a need to shift to an unreamed intramedullary nails and hand reamers and hand drills in order to reduce amount of AGPs. And the operating team numbers and seniorities need to be quite judicious. You don't have to be overwhelmed inside the operating theater, and you just have to decrease the number of staff and doctors as far as possible. There has to be a reinforced established plan for thorough cleaning and disinfection prior to the use of operating theater facilities for patients in new context of novel coronavirus 19 pandemic. And it should be necessary to check equipment such as anesthesia machines which are used to intubate the patient or ventilate the patient thoroughly, whether they are decontaminated as per ASA guidelines and CDC guidelines. It would be better if the surgeries are introduced in a phased manner. You should not start elective surgeries in the full swing as we used to do a month back, but you should start in the phased manner. Say, for example, if there are 4 operating rooms at one floor, start with the 2 rooms, decontaminate the next day, and then you operate in the next 2 rooms. Meanwhile, and by that doing this method, you will give a 24-hour decontamination rest to those OT or to those operation theaters. Then the other considerations are regarding PPEs. There should be at least an inventory of 30 days. And the other thing about the post-operative care, they suggest that the length of stay in the hospital should be minimized. They suggest that patient, if possible, be discharged directly to his or her home or guest house rather than to the nursing home or the hospital. because that will decrease his post-operative exposure to novel coronavirus, or if he or she is positive for coronavirus, then he will not be a risk factor for the other patients which are there inside the hospital and the staff which is there inside the hospital. And post-operatively, all those that is post-operative dressings and those should be managed at his or her home only. And use of telemedicine as it is coming up, or remote teleconsultation, it should be made as far as possible for consultation at home only, in order to minimize exposure to each one of us as well as other patients. Then there comes a role of rehabilitation. Orthopedic surgeries is just 50% and 50% is rehabilitation. So rehabilitation protocol, since your patient, you do not want your patient to come back to your clinic again and again. So this time you have to develop video based tools, or you have to refer them some tools using YouTube or other video websites, in order to teach them the types of exercises that they have to do following surgery, and you have to motivate them to do surgeries themselves on the teleconsultation. Then there is something called a surgical audit or complication register. You have to have a complication register or surgical audit in order to check your infection rate. If you think this COVID-19 pandemic or in post-pandemic times your infection rates are increasing, you actually need to decrease your surgical rates, because yes, there must be something to have register on, who which should note down the complication, whether they are increasing or not. Then another thing is that we should be very well prepared for the second wave, because all the cousins of this novel coronavirus, they have had the second wave. So we are also expecting, and we should, yes, very well be well equipped for the second wave that is possibly be coming in the upcoming months or years. Now what conclusion that they have come to, that this is very nice, and they have also said that during these peri-pandemic times, conservative management and operative treatments requiring minimal invasion and shorter surgical times should be preferred over complex and long orthopedic surgeries, and those which are likely to generate significant amount of aerosols, they should be withheld or deferred till we have good times ahead. So this flowchart is very nice, and they have given in a very nice manner, in a very, this is what the protocol we should or you should follow at each and every center in the country. So they have said that if there is a patient with history of fracture or a scheduled elective surgery, if he's asymptomatic or symptomatic, you have to separate these two things. If he is symptomatic, then you have to go ahead for COVID-19 testing. Symptomatic obviously for COVID-19. Then you have to see for the patient condition whether the patient is stable or unstable. If the patient is unstable, then you have to shift the patient to ICU. You have to temporarily stabilize the patient. You have to temporarily stabilize the fracture, and you have to postpone the surgery later on. If the patient is stable, then you think about operative. Now, when you are thinking in the lines of operative management, you have to first of all think about two things: whether this surgery is life saving or limb saving. If this surgery is not life saving or limb saving, then you have to consider conservative modes of treatment, traction or plasters, and then you have to do this surgery later on. If this is limb saving or life saving surgery, then you have to follow all those personal protective equipments and universal precaution guidelines, and then you have to operate upon this patient in order to save the limb or life of the patient. Now let's go on to the patient who is asymptomatic. So in asymptomatic patient, our trouble is more. You have to ask for travel history. You have to have at least contact history. Now if there is contact history or if there is travel history, then you have to do COVID-19 testing. And if it comes out to be positive, then again you have to look out for whether it is limb saving or life saving. If it is limb saving or life saving, you have to do surgery following universal precaution. And if it is not, then you have to defer the surgery. And if this patient comes out to be negative, then you have to perform surgery with all the precautions again, with all the universal precautions. And if this was asymptomatic patient without travel history, no contact history, and then you don't really have to perform COVID-19 testing in this patient, and then you have to perform surgery following universal precaution. So this flowchart is very holistic and it gives a very broad idea to each one of us, each one of the surgeons who are practicing in the country. So this paper has been a very landmark paper, I would say, and it gives us a direction on how to go about in upcoming times in post-COVID era. So this is what I was here to discuss, that is, how are we going to resume elective orthopedic surgery? How are we going to tell our patient then that what are we doing? It is not just that we are deferring for any other reason. We are deferring surgeries for some reason, for their benefit only. We have to counsel them very nicely. And after weighing the risk benefit ratio, we go ahead with surgery or with conservative treatment. Thank you.